Hey scholars, Mr. Byrne here. Today we're going to be going over the Aperture project. So you've been learning about the exposure triangle and the relationship between shutter speed, ISO, and today we're going to be looking at how aperture, or f-stop, plays a role in that aperture triangle that we've been learning about. So to start with, come on over. We're going to just go over again some basics. Your SD card, you need to be able to insert that into the camera. It is super important that you remove the camera from the tripod when you do this. If you don't, you risk breaking off this battery compartment cover here. So we're going to take the SD card, and if we're looking at the back of the camera, the label is up, and it will slide right in there just like so. Use your thumbnail to kind of push it in, and then close the battery compartment. So once you have that done, we're going to attach the camera to the tripod by turning it. There's some teeth right here and here, so you put the teeth on the inside and lock it in. This should lock shut. If it's not locking in, make sure that this clasp over here, when you come around here, is open. So I'll demonstrate that one more time. So to get it in there, it should snap just like that. But sometimes this doesn't go all the way in. You just got to make sure that this is open, and you can tell by seeing this little, if you can see this little metal dot in the middle here, this means that it's open. And that's kind of what gets depressed to release this. And you push it in there, just like that. All right, so we are now going to get our shot set up. So we're gonna connect, you're not gonna do this, I'm gonna do this to demonstrate so you can see it up on my screen here, what's happening on the camera screen. So this is just a little step for me. Okay. Once the camera is turned on by using the power switch, the very first thing we're going to do is we are going to set our mode to manual. Now, if you'll notice on the top of the screen here, we have a bunch of different options here. Now, you use manual for your ISO project. You use shutter priority, TV, for your shutter speed project. For this project, we're going to be using the mode Aperture Priority. Don't ask me why it's AV, but that's what it is. So Aperture Priority is the mode. Okay, we're going to remove our lens cap, and we're going to set it right here on the table so the next person can use it. We want to make sure we protect this lens. Do not touch the front of the lens. You don't want to put your fingerprints on there. Okay, now that the camera's on, we're in Aperture Priority. The next step is we need to set our focal range to 55 millimeters. Now, this is a zoom lens, so you have adjustable range for focus. So we're going to zoom in all the way to the white line is at 55, okay? And now when we put our, I'm gonna turn it on to live view mode, and you can do this as well, but you're gonna see it on the back of the screen. We're gonna see it up here. And as you can see, now we have our shot that is composed, and we have our minions. All right. And we're going to just come down just a little bit by tilting the tripod down. Very good. All right, so now that we have our shot composed, the next setting we're going to adjust is our ISO. So on the directional keys, the cross keys on the back of the camera, the top one says ISO. So let me get out of my live view mode here, and we'll go to ISO setting. We want to set our ISO to 800. This will be able to do most situations indoors. So now that we're at ISO 800, we're gonna lock that in. All right, and then the next step is we are gonna go back to our live view mode here. So we're gonna get the camera focused. So go ahead and look back at me now. Okay, to focus the camera, a couple of things. The camera needs to be in manual mode, and on the camera, if you come around the side here, you'll see that we have some different buttons available. So we want to be in the MF mode, manual focus, not autofocus, okay? So you can make sure that's slid back. And once one person does this, the rest of the group should be good. All right, so what that allows us to do is now we can manually focus our lens, okay? So if you're on the back here, we have some zoom in and out keys, a minus and a plus, and you'll see the little icons there. We're gonna zoom all the way in. And here we go. We're going to focus on the middle minion over there, the one in red. And by turning this towards the front of the lens, we want to get our image tack sharp. We want this thing, we want to see the details. All right, so that looks pretty good. I can see the whites of his eyes. All right, so from there we're going to zoom back out, and you'll notice that we now have our composed shot. We're going to take a series of 5 images by adjusting the aperture, okay? When we adjust our aperture, it's going to adjust our shutter speed. It's going to choose the best shutter speed to get a consistent photograph. So if you want to pan back this way, the way you adjust your aperture, now that we're in Aperture Priority mode, so we've set our ISO, we manually had control over that, and we are going to give priority, Aperture Priority, to the aperture by turning the main dial. So in your nomenclature quiz, you had to identify that piece right there. And we're going to start at aperture 5.6. So what's happening here inside your lens is we have the biggest possible hole in the lens, which is allowing the most amount of light, which is giving us, and this is where the important piece is, what's happening within your image is affecting your depth of field. So your foreground, your subject, our minion over here is in focus, and you'll notice that our sorting hat in the back is out of focus. This is the desired effect. So we're using, by putting the red minion in the middle, we're using a little emphasis. When we get the principles of design, that'll make sense. And then we're also giving an emphasis by having that being the only thing in focus. Okay, so we're talking about aperture, we're talking about how it affects the depth of field within your image. So you're gonna take that first shot, you're going to push the button, and it's going to record your image. Now if we look at our image, we'll get it up on the screen here. You can see that our red guy in the middle, our little English minion, is in focus, and the sorting hat in the back is out of focus. Okay, you're gonna, like I said, you can take a series of 5 images here. The next one is going to be at aperture. We're going to turn that main dial, and if you look at the bottom of the screen here, you're going to see it go from 5.6 all the way up to f8. So 3 turns of the main dial. 1, 2, 3. We're at f8. You're going to take another image, okay? And then we're going to adjust that main dial 3 more times. Here we go. Once it pops up there. Now from f8 to f11. 1, 2, 3. And we take our picture. And then we're going to do it again. 1, 2, 3, to F16. And we're going to do it one more time up to F22. So 1, 2, 3. And what you're noticing here is every time we adjust our aperture, our shutter speed is getting longer, because what's happening inside of the lens is every time you're making that F number larger, your hole is getting smaller, right? Allowing less light in. So the camera's adjusting by having a longer shutter speed, and you're having that relationship between the two. So if we go back and we can actually look at our images here, here's what we're going to notice. Let's see here. All right. So if we go all the way back to our f5.6, let me put the information on there. So display, there we go. At the top of the screen, you can see that we took this image at f5.6, and it was 1/13 of a second. When we go to the next one, making that hole smaller, the shutter speed is going to get longer. Now it's at 1/6 of a second, and 3 seconds, and then 5 seconds, and then 1.3 seconds. That didn't make sense, but it gets longer every time. And what we're getting though is, you'll notice from our first image to our last image, if you look at the sorting hat, our sorting hat is now in focus, where at 5.6, he's out of focus. So this gives you creative control as an artist to emphasize what you want in focus within your image. And this can be a very useful tool. As a photographer, this is one of my favorite things to adjust is that depth of field. So now you have control over that. Okay, from here, you're going to turn the camera off. You are going to remove the camera from the tripod, remove your SD card, close the battery lid, put the lens cap back on, and place it on the table so the next scholar can step in and take their pictures. From here, we're going to head over to the Photoshop. Let's go. Hey scholars, Mr. Byrne here. So we just got finished taking our photographs. Now we're going to apply them to the second part of the Aperture project, which is turning those images into an animated GIF, which is kind of a cool skill you can use for all kinds of different classes and applications. And you can do that right in Photoshop. So that's the first thing we do is we need to locate and open up Photoshop. If you are on a PC, you're going to go to the lower left-hand corner here. There should be an icon, the Windows icon, and it should be near the top of your applications. If you're on a Mac, we're going to go to the Finder window here, and we're going to go to Applications, and towards the top, we will find Photoshop. And then you want to double click on that. I already have it open right up here, so we're just going to pop that open. Once you're in Photoshop, the next step is to locate and open your images that you just took. So you're going to insert your SD card into the SD card slot. Make sure that you eyeball it and that you're putting it into the correct spot. And from there, once your SD card is in, you're going to click on Open. And then we're going to go to our device, EOS Digital, and then DCIM, which is the folder, and 100 Canon. And ours are going to be at the bottom here. And holding down the Control or Command key, depending on if you're on a Mac or a PC, you're going to open up all 5 of those images. Okay. Let those load up really fast. Boom, there we go. All right, so we're going to start with the very first one. And we know that this is our Aperture 5.6 image. One of the things we're exploring in this project is how aperture can affect depth of field. So in this image here, we have what's called a shallow depth of field, meaning our subject is in focus, our little minion guy here in red, and then everything in front of him starts slowly getting out of focus, and everything behind him slowly gets out of focus. We can see our sorting hat in the background here, which is very out of focus. So step one in all this is we are going to actually need to make this into a layer with some text on it, and we're going to merge all that together. So the very first thing we're going to do is grab our text tool, and for this project we want to make sure that our foreground color is set to white and that our font is set to Mirrored Pro and that we have a size 72 font. And once you have that, you're going to click here in the lower right hand corner and then lowercase backslash 5.6. And then using the Move tool, you will move the text into the corner here. Very nice. All right, and then what we need to do is we need to merge all this information together so we have one layer. So holding down the Control or the Command key, depending on which system you're on, we're then going to click and then right click, and we're going to merge layers. And there we go. All right, so this is the only layer, one that we're going to do this for. And the other ones will be an additional step, which I'll explain in just a moment. So let's go to our next one. So this is our Aperture Aperture 8.0. So again, adding the text tool, and then F backslash 8.0, and then using the Move tool, which is keyboard shortcut. Let's see, V, I believe. If it doesn't work, there we go. All right, and then we go to our next one. Actually, before that, what we need to do is we need to merge these into a layer. So again, holding down the Command key, merge layers, and then we're going to make a duplicate layer of this background, and I'll explain why that in just a moment. Okay, so first let's get our text in all of our images. All right, for our next one, we're going to go to Text Tool, F backslash 11, Aperture F11. Using the Move tool, Reposition. All right, merge our layers. All right, go to the next one, which is Aperture F16. And again, using the Move tool. And then lastly, oh, we got to merge those. Merge layers, and then we'll do that there. Good. And then our last one. F11, using the Move tool again, Reposition, merge layers. All right, to make a duplicate copy, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command J. So now I have a layer 1. I'm going to do that for all of my layers. Command J.
or Control J if you're on a Windows computer. And we already have that here. Okay, so now what we need to do is we're going to combine all of these images into one image, essentially. So we want all those different layers in one place. So by creating an additional layer here, because this layer is locked, it won't let us do anything, we want to be able to pull this. So using the Move tool, which is right there, I'm going to click the image, pull it over to here and hover. I have not let go yet. And then once I bring it to center, I'm actually going to let go of the mouse, and boom, reposition it. And our purple guidelines there tell us, and now we have our background layer, and we have our layer 1, which is F8, and then we can actually close this one out. We are done with it, and go to our next one. F11, pull it over, hover, and drop. There we go. Position it. Perfect. All right, close that out. We are done. And then we're going to go do it again. Position it. There we go. Close it out. And then our last image here. Okay, so now that we have all of our layers here, we have 5 images. We want to make this into an animated GIF. And the way we're going to do that is we need to turn on a couple of things here. The first one is we're going to go up here to Window, and we want to turn on the timeline, which is right there. And we click on that. Now we have a timeline down here. And we want to click on Create Video Timeline. And what it's going to do is it's going to essentially drop all of our layers right here. Let's make this a little bigger so we can see what's happening here. So we have all our 5 layers here now. All right, and starting at the bottom, we want to start. So we know that this is our F5.6, so that's the first one. We're going to make that 1 frame, and then we're going to grab the next layer and do this for another frame. And we're going to do this for all 5 frames. So we're going to stagger them out here just like this. Good. Oh. It's saying we need another layer, so let's do that then. There we go. Turn off this background layer. Alright, so just a slight adjustment here. It apparently wouldn't let me use the background layer because it is locked, but not a big deal. Alright, we just made another copy of that layer. And, leaving that one there. Good. Pull it here. Good. So now we have all 5 of our layers there in sequential order. And when we push the play icon, you will see that it will change for each of the images. Right? Okay, so that's it. That's everything's in place that we need to have here to create that. You did notice that I turned off our background layer here. So hopefully that's not too confusing. If you have questions, please let us know. But now that you have all 5 layers in place, you are going to now export this out as an animated GIF. And to do that, we are going to go to File, Export, and we're going to use something we've never used before in this class, which is Save for Web Legacy. Save for Web Legacy. We're going to click on that. All right, that's taking just a moment here. Good. Okay, so a couple of things. Let's zoom out here. All right, so we can see it's really pixelated here. So let's actually cancel this, and we're going to make the image a little smaller to work with, so we'll have a higher quality GIF. So let's just cancel this. All right, so let's make this smaller. The next step is we need to actually crop all of these images. So we're going to crop these down, and we're going to do a 3:2 aspect ratio. And let's see what are our options here. Times resolution, so that's fine. 3:2 and resolution of 72. All right, and then enter. It's going to crop all of our images for us just like that. As you see, they're much smaller now. I'm going to hit Command plus to zoom back in. All right, and then let's see here. Now we go back to File, export, save for web legacy. All right, and then much smaller image here. So we have a 216 by 144 height, which is going to give us a much better quality. All right, so colors, you want it to be set to 256, and diffusion and dither at 100. And then our matte, let's change that to actually black. Good. And then once we have that, this is the last thing, is we want to make sure that this is on looping options is set to forever. So it'll just continue to play. And then we click save. And we name it. So for this, you're going to name it your aperture. And then your underscore last name, your last name. So we'll put a bird in here. And GIF and put it somewhere, preferably to your thumb drive, so you can turn that in. And then click save. All right. And so if you try to open this and play it, so mine's saved right here. If you try to play this on your computer, it's not going to work. You actually have to put it into something on the web for actually view it correctly. So we're going to do that so that we can test it out. And this is actually how you're going to be submitting your project. So you're going to go to your Drive account and you're going to go to here and you're going to create a new folder, or a new presentation actually. So File and then Google Slides. Title this with your last name. So on underscore solo underscore aperture underscore project. All right, and then you can put the same information that's here. You can make it a little fancy though. On solo aperture project. All right, and then I want you to choose either white or black. I don't want anything fancy, just something simple, white or black. I'm going to choose black because it seems to show images a little better. And then you're going to add another slide by hitting this drop-down box, and we want to add a blank one. So we now have a blank slide here, and then we're going to go to Insert, Image, Upload from Computer. And then if it's on your thumb drive, you'll be able to locate it under Devices. Mine's on my desktop, so there it is. Open. And then as we put this here, you can see that it's actually working. There you go, and it should be looping and it should be running forever. Now feel free to make this a little bigger if you want so we can see it a little clearer. Now we have a nice easy GIF. It should work on any sort of platform or format that we want. You are going to then submit this presentation into Google Classroom under the Aperture project. It'll say something like Submit Aperture Project here, and this is what you'll actually be turning in. All right, thanks for tuning in, scholars. And for comments, questions, or concerns, please contact Mr. Byrne, Mrs. Robinson, or Miss Powell, and we'd be more than happy to answer your questions. Have a great day, scholars. Bye.